Okay, I think we are ready to start. So I'd like to welcome everyone to this first webinar in the Africa ELTA Leadership Series. We are holding this webinar and starting this series so we can share examples of Africa ELTA leaders who have inspired us throughout the years. And also another aim for this series of leadership experience sharing is actually to also share experiences from Africa with emerging teacher associations, whether they are in Africa or internationally, and to share some of the challenges and also the success stories that face teacher association leaders. So we can help those who are starting, but also to allow an opportunity for established teacher associations to exchange ideas. We are starting this series with Okon Effiong, who is Africa ELTA founder. And just before I start my interview with Okon, I would like to talk about the first time I met Okon. And this was back in 2017, when I was still the president of Nile TESOL, the local affiliate in Egypt. And Okon was doing his job reaching out to African teacher associations to try to ask for contributions and also to engage African associations in the work of Africa ELTA. I remember when I showed interest in contributing and helping, he was very open as a leader and he gave me all the support throughout my work on the steering committee. And whenever I would share an idea, I was always like welcoming, and I felt very encouraged and supported as an emerging leader, then also coming from a local teacher association in Africa. So I think the example of Okon is really an example for us to learn from as an African leader who has also gone international. And I'm very glad to be doing this interview with you tonight, Okon, and thank you for your time to share your expertise with us.
Thank you, Amira.
I would like to start first by asking you, since you are the founder of this association, how did the idea come to your mind to start an international regional association for African teachers?
I think before I answer that question, Amira, I want to say congratulations to Morocco. Morocco just defeated Canada at the top of the group. You can imagine Belgium, that is ranked second in the world, is out, and Morocco is in. Senegal is into the last 16. This is what Africa can do. So this is very timely. Thank you very much. Congratulations to all the Moroccans here. To answer your question briefly, I think one answer would be misperception, misrepresentation, underrepresentation of Africa. You know, in the past, they used to call it the dark continent, probably because we don't have so much light, but we have the most sunshine. And I remember my trip once when I was in Japan. I was at a train station, and a young Japanese boy, a 6-year-old boy, sat next to me and said, "Are you American? American gymnast?" I said, "No, I'm African." He said, "No, you're not." And I said, "I'm African, I'm Black, I'm African." He said, "No, you cannot be." Then I turned and I said, "Why do you say so?" The question was, why are you wearing clothes? Why are you wearing clothes? Africans don't wear clothes. And I thought, whoa. So it's about perception. The young boy has been seeing television, seeing hungry children, naked children from Africa, believing that everybody in Africa is like that. So this kind of made me to think Africa is not represented in most of our international events. How many Africans have given keynotes addresses at TESOL International or IETFL conference? How many researchers from Africa have been published in the blue chip high-end journals? So these are the negativities that serve as motivating factors for me. We have British Council, we have the RELOs in Africa, helping teachers in Africa. But these are offices with specific mandates, which align with the ideological framework of their government. we've been having RELOs and British Council doing stuff in Africa for so many years, for decades. So for me, I believe it's like giving us fish to eat instead of giving us a fishing net. So looking at this, nobody will ever love you more than you love yourself. So then I thought we need an association of African teachers, by African teachers, and for African teachers. So these were my driving forces. These were the things that compelled me to think of having an association that serves as an umbrella organization for all the regional or country affiliates.
Well, it sounds very easy as you explain and describe it, Okon, but I'm sure it was not that easy. So what are some of the challenges that you faced as a leader trying to establish this new association?
Getting it off the ground was a major challenge. You see, one thing is to have the idea in your mind. This is what I want to do. How do you get started? I think I was fortunate to be serving TESOL International in different capacities. I was on the diversity committee. I was also in the EFL intersection leadership pipeline. So it gave me a good understanding of how associations work. And I also was a president of Qatar TESOL. So I was really worried that we needed something also in the region, something like TESOL Arabia had in the Middle East. I knew it was not going to be so big because TESOL Arabia was like 20 years old then. So I wrote to some affiliates. At that time, I think at the 2015, 2016, we had like 12 affiliates, TESOL affiliates, countries that are affiliated to TESOL International. I wrote to the leaders because I had access to their email addresses. I wrote to 12 of them. It was like, we've heard this before. People say it all the time, but it never gets off the ground. We've heard this story before. But 4 were interested: Senegal, Cameroon, Sudan, Rwanda. Said, yeah, great idea. Maybe we can do it. But it was just great idea. And that was it. On paper, great idea. And because of my relationship with the big names in TESOL International then, I approached with like Dina Bore, who was the president of TESOL. And I chatted with Dina. Dina said, you have to just start small, start small. And maybe just focus on conferences for the first 3 years or 4 years, organizing conferences, and then see how it will go. And I thought, yeah, okay. So Ayman Sheikh, who is the past president, we were colleagues here, we were working in the same department, and we talked about it. And so he was like my anchor man, my right-hand man. So I wouldn't say I started it, because without Ayman, I wouldn't have been able to really start anything. So we had gone to Sudan a few times for TESOL Sudan conferences. So Ayman suggested, why don't we use one of the annual conferences there to do Africa TESOL conference. It was called Africa TESOL then. So in 2016, we said, okay. And I was also lucky in the sense that using his WASTA, was able to get a lot of support from the government of Sudan, some universities there. And TESOL, at the time, the presidential line was also very supportive. So we had the 3 TESOL presidents at our conference, inaugural conference. And Andy Curtis donated $750 for the conference bags. So things just kind of started very well. And that was our first conference. And that's how Africa TESOL started. But that's not all. I also want to say that at the time Africa TESOL started, Qatar TESOL was failing. And it failed not because of me. I was the president, but I wasn't pushing my agenda. I wasn't getting the board to buy into my vision. So I had to resign in frustration. And soon after that, the person that took over killed Qatar TESOL. And now Qatar TESOL doesn't exist anymore. Then I remember these African teachers telling me, we've heard this before. So my fear was, is this going to fail again? With my finger on it? No, and I said, no way. It wasn't going to fail. So great successful conference to start. And we had a steering committee, which was supposed to take the association forward. And this was all Africa-based teachers. And for 1 year, nothing happened. And there was this Africa TESOL dying again before, maybe dying in infancy, like stillbirth. So Rwanda was happy to host the second conference. And then at the Rwanda convention, I told Amin, we have to wrestle this association, otherwise it's going to die. So I decided to adopt a undemocratic approach by saying, okay, I'm now going to be the president of Africa TESOL. Amin said he's going to be the vice president. I said, whoever wants to be anything, just nominate yourself. Secretary, publicity, nominate yourself, tell us what you can do, and then we'll take it from there. And at Rwanda, the reload then told me, Okon, Africa TESOL is going to fail. It's too ambitious. What you need is just a small regional body comprising maybe 3 countries, Rwanda, Uganda, and Ethiopia. And I looked at him thinking, if I want to establish a regional body, I'm from West Africa, I'm from Nigeria. Why would I want to go and establish a regional body in East Africa, not start from West Africa? And I thought, no, this one is not going to fail. So that's how we started. So the reload prophesied the demise of Africa TESOL, but I'm happy to have proven him wrong as I'm sitting now. So that's how the idea got off the ground. And the challenges were there, but we're still talking about that as we progress.
Yes, true. And what you're saying about your vision at the beginning, I think this is what derived you and maybe motivated you to keep going because of the frustrations that you have mentioned at the beginning, staying for 1 year with nothing. So just like thinking about like leaders here, teacher association leaders who are listening to us, what would you tell them to really keep going? If they are starting their new association, and I'm glad that we have new affiliates joining Africa ELTA this month, including Niger and also Kenya. We want to also be able to support them through the experiences that you have encountered, Okon. So what piece of advice would you give emerging teacher association leaders to keep going despite of, the frustrations?
One is to have a resilient personality. You have to be very resilient. And then you have to also regulate your emotions. Regulate your emotions. You need social skills as well. Because when you have positive emotionality, you are socially skilled, it's easy for you to reach out to people. You know, you should not be motivated by rewards, but by results. Because some individuals will take on positions where they expect material rewards or financial rewards or recognition, name recognition. They want to see their names or faces on the pages of newspaper. They want to appear on television. If they are motivated by those rewards, I think it will not be very helpful. And you also have a team you'll be working with because you cannot do it alone. I'm just happy with the way you introduced me, Amira, about a meeting at El Laayoune in Morocco. You know, I mean, what you said about me, it's what I want to say. You know, you've already described me as easy, supportive, and so you need to be able to provide that platform for people to grow without being prescriptive, without being bossy, and being able to listen to ideas, because even though you are maybe the president of the association or the secretary or the leader, your idea is not always the right idea. You have to listen to everybody. So when you have a team working with you and you are easy to approach, you're approachable, you have a listening ear, then people will be able to buy into your vision and discuss and then help grow the young association. So, and if you disenfranchise any member of your team or your board member, because we're all volunteering, nobody's paying us to do this. So when you are dealing with people that are volunteering their time, their money, their energy, you have to treat them with respect because they can just quit. Dissatisfied volunteers are more likely to quit. So you have to make everybody feel like, okay, whatever he or she is contributing is appreciated, is helping, is working towards the growth of the association, and not make anybody feel you made this mistake, this is wrong, this is bad. Because if you do that to me, I say, hey, I can use my time to watch television or to go and hang out with my friends and do something else. So you need that kind of personality to be able to attract people to work with you without being unnecessarily bossy.
Yeah, I like the concept that you mentioned about working as a team, because I think in Africa and in some teacher associations in Africa, this is like different. The situation is usually different, that usually the leader is the one who does everything, the president in the teacher association, showing up to all the events and giving less visibility to the team maybe. How would you like advise teacher association leaders to cope with the idea of working in a team first, and how to motivate like leaders in Africa or teachers who want to offer professional service to take initiative and to be part of the team instead of having a one-man show?
The one-man show, I think, is probably based on
Or one-woman show.
one person show. This is not a gender war. One person show.
Yes.
I think the one person show is based on maybe the rewards that's coming to that office. I know I mentioned Rilo, BC earlier on, and so we do get the opportunities for teachers to go to international conferences, to travel outside their country. And it's usually the president or the secretary of that association that gets it. He goes to America this year, next year he wants to go to London. So he will not allow anybody else to come in. Whereas it should be like, hey, why don't I go this year, next year, another member of the board, another member. So that gives that sense of belonging. So everybody can aspire to enjoy that benefit that accrues to the association. So the one-person show is also a function of lack of delegation of duties, or maybe impatience. Because if I ask Amira, can you do this for me? And then I give you 3 days to do it, you don't do it, then I just get upset and I get on with it and do it, instead of finding out why couldn't you do it? What is taking you so long to implement this idea or execute that task? You know? So these are the sort of things that will make some leaders will just assume responsibility for everything. And it also filters down from the African mentality, people being in power for 40 years. You saw what happened in France, in Paris, with the Cameroon president. And then we had one in Zimbabwe, people sitting there for, you know, so it's just part of that mentality. We sit here discussing politics, criticizing our leaders, but in the small power position that we have exact replica of what we are criticizing. So to be able to build that team spirit, if you have maybe one banana, you have to share it amongst everybody. That gives that sense of belonging. But not when banana comes, it's like only the leaders will take it. You know, also another African mentality, the elders will eat the good heads, and then the visitor will give it to the young ones. So, you know, the big things goes to the leaders. So we need to disabuse our minds and win ourselves of that sort of mindset, so that whatever comes, shared amongst everybody. If the opportunity comes, spread it. In fact, a good leader should be able to take a back seat and say, okay, you enjoy, like a father of the house, a father or the mother of the house. If the food is not enough, the mother will starve and let the children eat. I remember during the Civil War in Nigeria, there was a time my mother went for 10 days without food in 1960s. But whatever little she could get, she would just give it to us, the children. That's what leaders should do. You don't just eat and then let the younger ones or the junior ones in the rank starve. So that's the kind of leadership we need to help build a team and give everybody that sense of belonging.
Yeah, we talked about leaders trying to create this safe space for everyone to thrive. But what would you say to the team members? Because some of the issues that come up in our meetings, our affiliates in Africa, the idea that sometimes team members on board or on committee are not really motivated enough to do the work. So it ends up that the leader does everything. So what would you say to those team members to start taking initiative and take responsibility?
No, volunteerism. I mean, first, before you even volunteer to serve on a team, you should ask yourself whether you have the time, the energy, the interest, the love. It's because it's a selfless service. So if you belong to that team, then you're committed to the team ideology, the team philosophy. You don't go into the team to do 5% and let the rest do 95%. You don't join the team to say and wait for Shadia to do the job while Mohammed is, sleeping. No. So when you go with that mindset, so be ready to do more than you are given. Be ready to take on more responsibilities. When that happens, you find that the team will work better. If you come in there, I give you maybe a certain task, you finish that, you ask for more. Ask for more. And then whoever the leader is will know, oh, I can rely on this person. Because when you have that reliability index that is high in the team, then you can trust the team members to work together. And it is not competition. It is not competition. You are not in the team to impress anybody. We are doing it for the common good, the general good. It's for the teacher. It's not for the board or the team, the leadership team. Whatever it is we are doing is for the general membership. So when you go with that mindset that whatever you are doing is not for your own personal gain, not for the board gain, but for everybody else, I think you'll be able to do more. And then you work better as a team, just like it's happening in Africa ELTA.
Yeah, that's true. And I keep reflecting on some experiences I had at Africa ELTA working with the leaders there thinking this way. And I think aligning with the same vision is very important for all the team members. I would like to ask a question we have in the chat box because it goes with the flow of the conversation. That Iyab was asking that sometimes leaders would delegate tasks, but team members would be only focused on rewards. What can the leader do in this situation?
Well, I said earlier that we shouldn't be motivated by rewards, but by results. So if you are going there looking for rewards, then you shouldn't be there at all. Looking at the history of associations all over the world, whether it's Africa or Europe or America, the founding fathers did not go there for rewards. They went in there to start whatever they started because of their love for the profession. They see there's a gap somewhere, they advocate for their colleagues so that they can benefit. So if a member of the team is actually waiting to be rewarded before he or she can perform that particular task, then shouldn't belong to that team at all. Shouldn't. So I think the message should be very clear from the outset. I mean, I've had these questions asked before when people send me, when I started Africa TESOL, I used to get emails, are you going to send me to America for TESOL International Conference? So here I am trying to bring something to Africa that we cannot get because we don't have the money to go to America. And you're asking me if I'm going to sponsor you to America for a conference. So that is what people just hope to get from associations. Or maybe they think, oh, this person is going to bring dollars. Let's see how we can get a piece of that action. There's no dollar to share. So once you go with that mindset of rewards, then I think it shouldn't be there at all. It's not part of volunteerism. The reward should be intrinsic. It should be when you see people happy, that should make you happy. That should be the reward. Like I sit down and see what's happening now in Africa ELTA, I just feel so happy. I say, yeah, because when we started, the first newsletter, I was a newsletter editor. It was only 1/3 or 2/3 of a page. That was the first newsletter. Look at our newsletter now. So if I can pull that document out now, newsletter 1, and what we have now, I mean, there's no greater joy than that. See? So it's not about personal reward. It's just about the common good. Think about the profession. Think about the community. Think about your colleagues that are less fortunate, that do not even have that platform that you have to provide the services. Many are willing, but they do not have the resources, maybe financial, material, the time, because People have families, they have children, they have other commitments, they're studying, they're doing things. So just think about people that do not have the time to volunteer, do it for the community.
Yeah, just to add also to what you said, Okon, about how to motivate the team members, I think also it's very important to set an example. Because I remember when I joined the Africa ELTA steering committee and I saw what you were doing and what Ayman was doing and others on board. The idea that we had to go to the conference and pay out of pocket to go to the conference and support everyone there and do things on the ground that are not usually done by leaders in the association. This was very inspiring and motivating for me as well to do the same. I keep thinking about these examples now as a president as well, about the things that I need to do to keep the association going, because I had you as an example and other leaders that were before. So I think setting an example is very important as a leader. And when the team sees this, they would be motivated and inspired to see this, to do the same. And to set the same expectations. There is another question about the context, and I think this like takes us to my next question. Do you think that leading in this context in Africa added more challenges to your job as the association founder and president at the time?
There were challenges, but right from the outset, I always told myself, I cannot do a good job because I live outside Africa. I cannot be prescriptive. I cannot be dictating to teachers in Africa what they should do, how they should do, when I'm not working in the same context. I work in a context where everything is there. I have the technology, I have the electricity and everything. So it's going to be very difficult for me to sit out here and be telling people in Africa what to do. So my vision had always been, it should be run by teachers in Africa. And then I provide the logistics support. I provide the whatever resources I can muster to give that support. So, and talking about the context, I think it's very different because a lot of people do not understand the struggles we go through every day. So like at TESOL International, when I talk to my colleagues, I say, hey, you people don't understand this. When you say $35 is cheap, you know, annual registration for members, global membership, $35. And then I think about my country. Some teachers don't even earn $100 in a month as salary. So how can that person bring out $35? You know, right now, $10 is a lot of money. When we have a conference in Africa, I don't even expect teachers to pay to attend those conferences because I know it's a lot of money to ask people to pay $10 or $5. So context is a problem. So challenges are huge financially. It's a very big challenge to run an association in Africa. And my philosophy had been to keep away from this idea of going cap in hand, begging for money. So I reach out to my friends outside Africa. Can you come to our conference, please? You pay your way, you pay your hotel, you buy your food, just come to our conference. Come and give a workshop. And they do. You know, you have friends of Africa ELTA that come to support our effort. Rather than me going to Relo or BC or please, can you give me $1,000 to run a conference? No. So my philosophy has been, we use what we have to provide what we can. So it's a big challenge running an association in Africa because the resources are not really as much as you get outside Africa. And then the mindset of what's in it for me, it's also a challenge. I just don't want to dwell on that again because I came across a lot of that. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? What am I going to get from it? And the small opportunity you give to somebody is like, what can I get from it? I don't know if I've answered that question very well, but we are here. We still have time. We can come back to it again if I haven't addressed it fully.
Yeah, you can keep posting your questions in the Q&A box, and I'm also reading the chat as we are talking to spot any questions. So the example that you mentioned, Okon, really relates to many teacher associations, and not only in Africa, but those also in similar contexts. The idea of the lack of resources is really a real challenge for many teacher associations that are emerging, trying to succeed and be sustained. the good news is that Africa ELTA has been growing, and despite of the challenges that you have mentioned financially, we are, I believe, setting a model working with low resources, actually sometimes no resources at all, and trying to offer our services to teachers in Africa. And I think in this situation, we can assimilate to our local teacher affiliates in Africa in the way that we try to sustain the association. So I'm talking here in particular to our affiliate leaders in Africa, who are, many of them, I see them in the interacting in the chat box. So what would you tell them to keep going despite of the low resources, as you mentioned? Because we talked a lot about the leader doing something for the team and trying to offer something. What about the leaders themselves, like you as a leader? What kept you going despite of all of this?
Patience. Patience. Because Rome was not built in a day. Patience. Because, I mean, looking back, I'm thinking 2015, when I was nursing this idea in my mind, if someone told me by 2022, Africa ELTA would be like this, I would say, no way. So I'm just happy with the way things have gone. And then also lucky to have a cream of volunteers that actually have the energy to drive the vision. It's no longer my vision. So I've disengaged completely mentally from that. So it's now the vision of Africa ELTA. So mine was just to found it, and now I can advise on the sideline, but the vision is now very broad. Many people have come into play. So patience is key. It's not helpful to rush to implement an idea simply because it's a good idea. The idea may be good, but then you don't have the structure in place. We've challenged, I mean, back to that question someone asked about the context. We do not have a physical structure. Unlike some big associations that have what we call secretariat, they have staff, paid salaries, and they do things. We do not have a physical structure. So that again was a major challenge. And in incorporating the association, that took us years to be able to incorporate the association. But now we've incorporated Africa ELTA in Nigeria. So that took time, but we've got it down. And now we don't have a bank account. Hopefully by 2023, we will get a bank account. So talking about patience, but we just have to keep going. Wait, when the time is right, it will happen. And then we had a very lousy website, which was the face of Africa ELTA. So we've been struggling with website, but now we have a nice website. You know, I've been having sleepless nights thinking, how can I get Africa ELTA to be more visible, to have a more dynamic website, something more attractive to the eye? That has been my main issue for the past 2 years, but now we have it. So patience is very important. Then sustainability. Do what you know will stand the test of time. Not something that's just a flash in the pan, it comes and it goes. That will stand the test of time. And then keep dreaming, have your vision, have timelines towards achieving that vision. My next big dream is a journal from Africa ELTA journal, that will report to the world what wonderful thing, all the wonderful things we are doing in Africa. It will happen. So see how the newsletter is metamorphosing slowly. So it will eventually become a journal of, that can stand any other of international repute. So that's something. So patience is key. With time, everything will come to pass. When people start comparing Africa ELTA with TESOL International, with ITFO, they forget that these are 55-year-old associations. Nobody knows how they started. But they now say, in TESOL International, this is what they do. In ITFO, they do like this. Why don't you do like that? It doesn't work like that. No, give us time. Give us 20 years from now. We'll do more than they did in their 20-year history. I promise you. So that's all I can say, patience.
Thank you, Okon, for this. Yeah. I see a question in the chat box about generating funds to organize programs. And one thing that I'd like to share, and I will leave the floor to you about this, is that all Africa ELTA programs and initiatives are started by Africa ELTA. In return, we don't really get any fees for this. So as a member, you join for free. You can participate in any of our events. You can be one of our mentees in any of the 2 mentoring programs we are running right now. And you can come to our conference and pay a reduced registration fee. So, and you as a member, since you're attending this and I see names I know here, you already benefit from all of this in an association that really does not have any sources of funds. So I think you can do the same if you want to function in Africa and follow this model. But I'd also like to hear your thoughts, Okon, about this question, like what are the steps that can be taken by an African teacher association leader to try to organize programs in low resource context?
And when I heard about the revenue generation, yes, I mean, it's a brilliant idea to charge people to attend your events. But when you put a fee on the conference attendance and the people cannot afford that fee, what happens? You shoot yourself in the foot. You go there to give a PD opportunity to people, and then they can't afford to avail themselves of that opportunity. Who loses? Both ways. You lose, everybody loses. And the other challenge is not having a bank account. If we get money, where do we put the money? Where are you going to pay the money into? You see, we have this trust issue in Africa. Trust issue. If I say, let me keep the money, how can you trust me with your money? You cannot. So then this one, Amira, you keep the money. How can I trust Amira? Amira doesn't trust me. How can I trust Amira? So we have trust issues. So to ask one person to hold the money for everybody, it's like, no, we don't trust you. Tomorrow you may have family problems. Use the association money to solve the family problem. We're not going to kill you. So until we have a bank account that we can tell people, pay your registration fee, $5 into that account, and then that's fine. So we'll try not to, we'll continue to give free services. Secondly, we look at the context as well. What is affordable? What is affordable? Because if I have 4 children in the house and they need food, and I don't have $10, and you're asking me to pay $10 to attend an event, I'd rather go to the market and buy food and feed my children. I say, well, tough. So we look at all these things. It's a real struggle until such a time that we earn living wages in Africa. Then it will be easy to now tell people, pay this. Living wages meaning your salary can pay your rent, buy your food, your transportation, your bills, and then you have something a little bit left for you. So without earning a living wage, I find it very challenging to now ask African teachers to pay for our activities. So with time, we will get there, but let's just take it slowly. Like I said, patience, with just sustainability, we'll get there slowly. Because when we start events like we want to charge $20 and nobody shows up, then we'll have a problem. We'll start very slowly and we won't charge too much, maybe $2 to begin with. And then the following year, $5, and then $15, and then it carries on. One thing I want to also say is, when we have a face-to-face event, we charge our international delegates $100. International delegates, we charge them $100. And then African teachers that are sponsored by BC or RELO, we charge $50. Everybody else is free. The local association, we leave it to the local association to decide what they want to do, but we say it should be free. If they want to charge the local members fee, it's up to them. It's not ELTA, Africa ELTA making that decision. So this is the way we've been doing it. So we continue like this until such a time that we know we can ask people for more money.
Yeah, and you were mentioning the conference. I'd like also to announce it for those who don't know that we have our 2023 conference in Angola next year. This is going to be in May, and the call for submitting proposals is still open. So you can still submit a proposal to become a presenter at the conference and join us in Angola. We are very excited to go back to our face-to-face conferences after the pandemic, and we hope to see everyone there. Talking of which, we have a question from Deborah about the pandemic and its effect on Africa ELTA. In your opinion, do you think it was easier or harder for the association to not have a physical conference in the past 2 years?
The pandemic was a blessing to Africa ELTA. It was a blessing. I mean, looking at it medically, not many people died in Africa compared to Europe or America, but the pandemic was a blessing because it challenged us to be able to reinvent ourselves and be able to meet the obligations that we profess to offer, to have. We were able to now organize webinars, weekly webinars, monthly events. So it just kind of put Africa ELTA on a global stage. And it also made us to be very inventive in the sense that we have to use what we have to offer what we can. Deborah and I were at one of the conferences where we were presenting on Zoom, and we had 17 people in our room, and we're talking about technology, using technology during the pandemic. Deborah and I and other people were presenting. We had 17 people in our room. The parallel session on WhatsApp had nearly 300 people. See, this is what I mean by the pandemic making it possible for people to now know that we can host conferences using WhatsApp, which is what Africa ELTA successfully did. Probably the first association in the world to host a conference using WhatsApp. So it was a blessing in that sense. And also, in terms of being able to travel to physical conferences, it was affordable for everybody to just log in. It would cost you maybe a few dollars to buy data to join our activities. So now that we are going back to face-to-face, that challenge comes back again. All these hundreds of people we've been entertaining, we've been hosting, we've been taking care of, are we going to see them? Are we going to lose them? So we have to find a way to still keep them sweet and be able to provide the face-to-face conference, which is always very great because when it's face-to-face, it's so different.
Yeah, that's true. And we are all looking forward to this. There is another question about the conference, and you being the program chair can answer this as well. Is the proposal for people who will be attending the conference only or everyone?
The proposal, when you submit a proposal, that means you are willing to present at the conference. And if you are willing to present at the conference, that means you are physically coming to the conference because it is not a hybrid event. It's a physical event. So it's not hybrid where you have face-to-face and internet. No, it's physical. So if you're submitting a proposal, it means you are going to come. So I'll suggest you can submit your proposal. If you have difficulties writing a proposal, you can send a draft for me to look at, and then I'll support you in writing a good proposal that will be accepted. I'm not the one making that decision. It's a team. And once you have your proposal accepted, you can use that letter to approach your employer, your ministry, or whoever you think can give you support. Because I know in the past, those who are presenting are more likely to get funding from the RELO or British Council. So that would be a good chance for you to, if you can get your flight and hotel accommodation covered, I'm sure you'll be okay. Because whether you're at your home, you eat food. Whether you come to Angola, you eat food. And we as Africans will make sure nobody is starving. Nobody who comes to the conference will starve. I cannot eat and see my sister or brother starve. So just get your hotel and your flight covered. You'll be fed.
Yeah, that's good to mention. So back to the leadership ideas. We have a question that's coming from Fatih, the leader in Mali. We are glad to have you here, Fatih. She's asking, how can we bring more women on board? And you as a leader, I think you have an experience here to share with us.
I think we have more women in our profession than men. Deborah is here. So Deborah can talk about, I mean, for those of you who don't know Deborah is the past president of TESOL International Association. So Deborah is very knowledgeable. I can say, like, can you upgrade Deborah to panelist, please? If she needs to chip in. And we have more women in the profession than men. But unfortunately, in some contexts, the few men who happen to be there, you know, just usurp the power, the authority, and maybe for cultural reasons where maybe women are meant to be seen or not heard. I don't know. You know, like, you know, some people would think that women shouldn't be so visible. Their place should be, I don't want to say anything that will cause offense here. So let me just stop there. So I think maybe cultural that may affect the women participation, or could be even if you're a married woman, your husband may not encourage you to volunteer your time where you can just leave the house and say, I'm going to a meeting without being able to explain. That's another thing. So, but if you're single and free, you have the time, I think you're very much welcome. On Africa ELTA, we have more women than men. Amira? At some point, I think it was kind of
I think they are
balanced.
equal. Yeah, I think we have equal numbers.
Equal, and we try to make sure nobody is more than the other. So we maintain that equality. If anything, we will let more women come in. So, Fatih, I think it's for you to encourage women in your local area to come into the leadership pipeline, to volunteer their time, and then increase their visibility. And actually, more women have gained from Africa ELTA programs than men. We have the EVE mentoring program. We have the research mentoring program. And we have another one ongoing now, and it's mostly women. So just tell the ladies to come. The door is open.
Yeah, and I think we have Deborah to share some thoughts on this. Hello, Deborah.
Okay, yeah. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
You know, the profession generally does have more women than men. Africa ELTA might be different in that respect, but what we also have is more men than women in positions of power, in leadership, in administration, and I think that's sort of globally generally true, that the positions of power are more male, the teachers are more female. So you got to get enough teacher. The other piece though that I want to add is that when you have a person like Okon or Amira, somebody who is willing to mentor and to encourage women, then you get more women. Women won't necessarily step up and say, I want to do it. But if somebody says, I think you can, then they're more likely to be willing to be in a position of leadership. That's, you know, that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah, for sharing this. And also recall here the idea of our female mentoring program and how it started back 3 years when the board had the vision to make African women more visible in our conference. And the idea of us approaching our members to show interest in joining our mentoring program so we can help and support them gain and be equipped with the skills needed to be conference presenters. And hence, we also had many of them participating in our PD events and in our conferences as presenters, trying to help African women to show up and to be visible in our events and conferences. And as Okon said as well, this is an approach on board in selecting board members, in selecting our plenary speakers for the conference. So we are very careful about this and we take it into consideration. I think as a leader, just to reiterate what you said, Deborah and Okon, that as a leader, we have a responsibility to empower and support women who we think are not visible and they need this support. So a big part of it really is on our shoulders to do it ourselves. Thank you for this, Deborah. I'm going to go back to the chat box to see if you have more questions coming. There is a question again about the reward idea, but I think you have answered this. So the idea of a leader becoming a follower, this came up in the Q&A box. Do you think, in your opinion, Okon, that a leader can also be a follower, and how can they be like that?
If I understand that question correctly, maybe leading from behind, which I think it's very true. And I even see my leadership style as falling into that description, leading from behind. I'm not the firebrand type. I mean, I don't like to show my face a lot. I just like to be in the background because, like, I use this analogy, the ship. You have the captain at the port. The captain is there, but the man in the engine room is actually the one making the ship to move. So I like the engine. I'm the kind of engine room leader. I just want to stay in the engine room and make sure things are happening. So in that case, I think a leader can be a follower. Or if a leader has a vision and everybody buys into that vision, and then you don't see yourself as above everybody else, you're all equal, or it could be just first among equals, then in that case, we all move together. There's nobody in front, there's nobody behind. We move together. And then when you talk about mentoring and succession planning, because when you are a leader today, you're not going to be a leader forever. You need to start grooming future leaders. So in that case, you give them more responsibilities, they'll be in front, and then you follow. So like now, Amira is the president of Africa ELTA. I'm following her. I'm not telling her what to do. She will tell me what to do as a member of Africa ELTA. And as the president of the board, as a presiding officer of the Africa ELTA board, she will tell me what to do. So that's an example of following, if I understand your question correctly. So a leader can be a follower. And I think good leaders should be good followers too.
Yeah, and I think from what you said, Okon, it's also a good sign of leadership that when we are ready to leave, that we have another generation ready to take over. Because staying there for many years, claiming that nobody's there to take over, I think this is also a sign of failure in leadership, that we haven't really mentored and supported new leaders to emerge and to take over leadership.
Sorry, Amira,
yeah.
Before we go to the next one, talking about mentoring and having women representation. Yeah, I mean, officially, Africa ELTA has a mentoring scheme. And I'm glad to say that all my mentees have been female. I don't see men, so that's fine. And we also can mentor you outside that framework. I have a lady in Nigeria who has been able to publish a book chapter by a big publishing house. I mean, she's not an active member of Africa ELTA, but on the side mentoring is still able to achieve that. So it's just a question of reaching out. You need support, and then we're always here to give you, either officially as Africa ELTA or as individual. You can always reach me as an individual. So, hey, Okon, this is what I want to do. Can you advise me? Can you help me? Can you show me the way? Because even those of us you see as leaders today, we looked up to people in the past. We had people we looked up to get us to where we are. So we only owe the profession a duty to be able to also groom people to get to where we are today. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you need any help in any way.
Yeah, and also to mention mentorship outside of our mentoring programs through our conference. We do have a mentoring scheme to offer feedback to first-time conference presenters. When they submit proposals, we give feedback for them so they can edit their proposals and submit again for them to be accepted. This has been something that we have been doing in our previous conferences and also in our upcoming ones. Another track for mentoring also that we offer is through our PD events. So when we send the call for presenters that's coming out very soon next year, we are going to ask for Africa ELTA members who have ideas for classroom activities or even research practices to share in our PD webinars. And we offer mentorship for first-time webinar presenters as well. So the idea that to show up and to show your interest in trying to offer something to other teachers, and we are here to support, as Okon said. As we are about to finish, just taking a moment of reflection, Okon, and thinking back on your leadership approach. What would you keep as a leader and what would you change?
I will keep my non-prescriptive philosophy. I don't dictate to my team. I don't prescribe to them. And then I always accept and discuss other people's viewpoints. I appreciate and reward my team. I don't, not financial reward, at least a verbal reward, commendation. And then avoid this superiority complex that I know it, I'm the business, everything revolves around me. If you avoid that sort of superiority complex, then things will work better for you. And then be ready to sacrifice your time, your money, and other resources, material resources you can put on the table. Because if you don't put your money down, you may not be able to move that agenda to the next level. And I just want to remind you, I read somewhere that volunteers enjoy better mental health because of the psychological resources, because their psychological resources are augmented. The fact that people are happy with what you are doing for them is enough satisfaction for you. And that gives you better mental health than non-volunteers. And also read somewhere that volunteers, the people that volunteer like 100 hours in a month do not suffer from all this diabetes, and I don't know how scientific that is, high blood pressure and all those things. So give your time, give your time. So still on things, what I will not do, reflecting on not just Africa ELTA leadership, my leadership experiences over the years in different associations, not to surround myself with negative people that just want to be armchair critics or eye servants. They only do it when they know somebody's seeing them perform. And then people that are self-seeking, looking for publicity, they want to be titled director of programs, conference chair. They want their names written in the program so they can share it to somebody. I was the director of programs during that conference. No, self-seeking individuals. And I still believe in myself, so I will continue to believe in myself. And I know that every journey begins with a step. And one day we'll get to the promised land. Because Africa has so much to share with the rest of the world. There are great things that will emerge from Africa. So it's only we that can share with the world. We're not going to wait for them to come and discover us again. No, like they said, Mungo Park discovered the sea route to Mungo Park. So we're not going to wait for people to come and discover. We are here. We need to share with the world. I don't know how many of you have been singing or playing reggae. They talk about Christopher Columbus discovered this as if there were no people living there. So what happened to the people that were living there? So let's not wait for people to come and discover us. We need to tell them who we are, what we do, and how we do it. Please, finally, we had a politician in Nigeria like 40 years ago, Chief Awolowo. What he said was, hope is the last milk in the human breast. I didn't say woman, I said human. Hope is the last milk in the human breast. Chief Awolowo. So I live in hope, and I hope that in the future, Africa ELTA will be big and will reach that promised land.
Wow, I can't say anything after this. Thank you very much, Okon. And just to add that Africa ELTA is there to serve African and international also ELT professionals. And I would like to thank you a lot for the experience that you have shared with us tonight. Very powerful words and insightful experience to learn from, and the great leader that we have at Africa ELTA that we are proud to have actually. Thanks, Okon, for continuing to serve Africa ELTA, even being past president now, Africa ELTA advisor. We really appreciate your support and your expertise. And I'm sure all our attendees tonight have learned a lot from your experience. Do you want to say anything before we close?
If there are questions in the chat box, I'm happy to stay for another 10, 15 minutes. It's a World Cup. I'm just happy that Morocco is making Africa proud. So let's continue to make Africa proud in our own little ways, please. Yeah.
Okay, we have one who raised their hand. Thank you for staying for 5 more minutes. I'm going to allow Sadia to speak so we can hear from them. I think you can just unmute and then you'll be able to speak.
Yes, go on, Sadia.
We can't hear you because you are muted. If you can also type your question in the chat box, you'll be able to read it. Okay, I see a lot of like comments, mainly of thanks to you, Okon, and for sharing your experience. Someone is saying, I have learned a lot from your leadership style, your prescriptive style, highly inspirational. Yes.
Someone is asking something. I should add the quote from Nigeria. Hope is the last milk in the human breast. It's not me. So I'm quoting Chief Awolowo, a famous Nigerian politician. It's late now. Hope is the last milk in the human breast. Yeah.
Yes, and I think this is good for us to end with. Thanks again to you, Okon, and to all our attendees tonight. You can keep your comments going on our Facebook page. This video is going to be there, and it's also going to be posted on our YouTube channel. Thanks for attending, and we hope to see you in future Africa ELTA Leadership Series. Thank you very much.
Thank you.